Hello everybody, it's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Not gonna be long. Look, you've heard me say this a million times. If you don't have at least two independent streams of income through which you hedge your primary source of income to protect you against catastrophic loss in that area, you are missing an opportunity to ensure your long-term financial security. I have created the 7-day online business launch course, which is a formula I use to reestablish myself online. It works over and over again. I've used it over and over again. Now I'm challenging you to take advantage of it. Click the link, learn more about it, enroll, and let's get started. Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Hope everybody's having an unbelievable week up until this point. I'm not going to be long. It is Wealth Building Wednesday. I have a real quick gem to drop on you. You've heard me talk about it before. I'm going to drop it on to you. I'm going to remind you about it. But before I do, two things directly associated with today's thing. Number one is the front end revenue generation. If you don't have at least two streams of income that you control, it's yours. You need to take the 7-day online business launch course. Here's where I teach you how to do what I've done over and over again. If you've seen the other day, I posted, there are currently 11 brands that I own and operated that I created using this. And that doesn't include all the other things I created as independent one-offs to generate revenue for promoting affiliate programs and so much more that aren't a part of the brand. It works. It simply works. You need to sign up for this course. The link is in the description box. It's an A to Z. It's beautiful. Plus, if you do it today, you'll also get 2 sessions with yours truly. Those 2 sessions are worth $1,000, $500 each. The bigger thing, the Legacy Wealth Academy's Path to Generational Wealth course. This is an 18-month comprehensive, robust course on everything you can imagine about wealth building, every instrument, every platform, the ideas, the mindsets, the practices, the must-dos, all of those things are in here. Again, this is an 18-month course. This isn't some quick one-offer. And on both of these courses, there's a way for you to sign up and either pay in full and get the bonuses that come with paying in full, or you can pay in installments over a certain period of the course. Either way, you want to make a move and do that. I am going to leave that in your hands. Don't let that opportunity fall through. If you're not doing something to advance yourself in this entire discussion of wealth building, you're doing yourself a disservice. Nobody owes you anything to give you something. You have to go out and you have to find it. You have to create it in whatever way you have to invest in yourself. Hey, there's this thing. We've talked about compound growth. We've talked about asymmetric risk reward. We've talked about diversification. We talked about asset allocation. We've talked about income annuities. We've talked about a bunch of different things that are part of the wealth building mechanisms, real estate and owning property and the huge impact that has, the use of insurance as a wealth building mechanism. And I'm not just talking about life insurance. There are so many different things that you learn in that course that you also get to talk about here on Wealth Building Wednesdays. Today, I want to talk about the importance of understanding and utilizing trust. You know, there's this ongoing joke, no matter what background you come, socioeconomic background you come from, you've heard the term trust fund kid. And there's a negative connotation comes with it. Spoiled little brat gets to live off their trust fund, but not really understanding the brilliant dynamic behind trust funds. Trust funds are not just about passing down money to your offspring. It's about protecting your money while you live. It's about putting it in a space that it's protected against a bunch of different things that are vulnerable, that make your money and your assets vulnerable when you don't have it trust protected. There are many different types of trust. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. What I want to do is simply put on your mind the importance of establishing trust to protect and project your assets. The way the wealthy do it is they use trust to protect how their money moves. They use trust to passed down. One of the most brilliant things that I learned in studying trust was what John Rockefeller did. John Rockefeller just happened to be a person who came along and was born at the perfect time. The Industrial Revolution came along. He was industrial minded, and he was able to use his mind and the momentum of the Industrial Revolution to do some unbelievably remarkable things. And so that is how he built his wealth. Yeah. And if you take John Rockefeller's net worth and what the dollar was worth at the time he was alive and projected that into the future, he would be the wealthiest man in the world. This isn't me singing the praises of John Rockefeller. This is me talking about wealth building, because the principles are there no matter who does it. What he did and what was immensely brilliant is he created a trust process through which his wealth would be distributed for generations, and all of his offspring held accountable. And what he did is he created what I call a duality trust. Basically, I'm going to leave you this, but you can only take half of what's in this trust. And the other half you have to put in a trust for your offspring. In addition to that, you have to do certain things to have access to your trust that shows you're building what I gave you. So you're going to not only get the trust, but I'm giving you part and I'm giving your kids something. Now that's going to be passed down. So for every person who gets it, they get what's coming to them, but they also have to take it and build trust for others. So while my offspring gets one trust, their children get two, their children get four. You see what I'm saying? And so it passes down the wealth. That's why you can look down 7 generations, 8 generations, 9 generations later, and the Rockefellers are still wealthy. It's because he protected his assets through trust. Everything is handled through trust. Everything is handled and managed through trust. Nelson Rockefeller was once quoted as saying, the goal is to own nothing and control everything. What was he talking about? Trust. You don't have your name on it, but you control it. And because you control it, you control the power. That's something. That's something that I think we need to be more educated on, is the use of trust. Another way that trusts are immensely powerful that we talk about wills. Yes, you need a will. You want things designated and understood. What goes in? Everybody said, well, all I need is a will. Well, all you need is a will if you have one of those families that's going to honor your will. So whatever they get, they take, and they go on about their business. A will suffice. All it takes is one person to contest the will. Now we're talking probate. Now we're talking money being held up for years. We're talking about a bunch of other things that gets the government, the state, and all this other stuff involved. However, if the money is sent down in a trust, the trust owns the money. There is no transitioning. It's the trust. The trust controls what happens with the money. And this is real important. Say, for instance, that one of your primary focuses on passing down wealth is to have a hefty life insurance. Say, for instance, $1 million policy, and some places won't, if you don't have certain things going for you, they won't give you $1 million policy. But and it's probably going to be costly depending on where it's going. But let's just say $1 million, 500,000 million, now $500,000 $1 million policy, right? And you leave it to a beneficiary, whoever this beneficiary is, and you have a will, and the will says that this is how the money is going to be divided up. Here's the problem. The insurance company is going to pay that money to the beneficiary. The beneficiary isn't bound to use that money according to the will, because the money didn't come through your estate in that sense, because it wasn't controlled by it, unless there's a trust. Now the trust is the beneficiary of the insurance policy, and the trust will have in it the determination of how money will be divided, what money will be used on, what will be paid off, what will be built, what will be purchased, and everything else in it down to stipulations. The trust will have a trustee or multiple trustees, and in many instances, a board. And they will make the ultimate decisions on making sure that the trust is executed properly. The trust is to protect your assets, during your life and after you're gone. It keeps you out of probate court, and it also keeps the recipients of your wealth that you're passing down honest. Because the truth of the matter is, I could take and say, okay, I'm leaving this to so and so and so, and or I can take out $1 million policy and I'm putting so and so on it, and then I've had this conversation with so and so. This is what's going on. Everything is spelled out in the will, and they're going, okay, okay, okay. And all of a sudden, somebody cuts them a check for $1 million, and it's in their name. It goes into their bank account, and then they're supposed to say, "Well, I'm only going to take 100,000 of this, and then I'm going to distribute it to everybody else the way it should be." And some will, a lot won't. But if you sit up and say, okay, I'm gonna put this in a trust, and so the trust, it becomes the beneficiary. The trust gets paid upon your death, and the trust by law has to execute the stipulations within the trust. And a lot of times a trust will protect you in tax liabilities and so many other things, because as long as the money is moved within the trust and nobody's experiencing personal gains, then you, in many ways, and I'm not going to get too in deep detail on that because I don't want to mislead you or get you caught up in something. I want you to be able to get to it and see it and read it and understand it in detail, because it's a detailed process. But there are many people out there do it, and I have the connections to the people. But all this is taught in the Legacy Wealth Past the Generational course. This 18-month course teaches all of that. But that's what I want to drop on you this Wednesday. Wealth Building Wednesday is one of the things that we hardly ever talk about in the Black community or the inner city communities in impoverished areas, coming from impoverished backgrounds, is the importance and the power of trust. And you don't need $1 million to set up a trust. You should be setting up a trust whenever you start to build assets. There are a number of different things. Even when it comes to setting up your businesses, you can operate your business as a trust. You can use an unincorporated business trust, also known as a Massachusetts trust, to set up. And the beauty about the Massachusetts trust and or an unincorporated business trust, which drives the IRS nuts, is that there's no double taxation. You can create a corporation, which you should do if you're going to go the other direction. You should get out of you should get out of sole proprietorship as soon as possible. At the very minimum, establish an LLC. And if you're going to be moving multiple entities, probably a C Corp, because you could operate those multiple entities under the umbrella of that one C Corp and still have the corporate tax umbrella. The problem with corporations is that there's this thing called dual taxation. And so there are two times that the money is taxed. Well, in an unincorporated business trust, the only time the money is taxed is when the money is actually paid out from the trust to one of the contributors to the trust. At that time, they have received a gain and they will have to pay taxes. But they can literally operate the business within the confines. And as long as the business is being operated, everything that's being purchased within the business is a business expense or can be identified as a business expense. If I'm running my business out of my home, then my mortgage can be considered a business expense. And, on down the line, and you get it. If I operate a vehicle as a part of my business, the payment on the vehicle or the purchase of the vehicle can be considered a business expense. So now I'm making moves that I would otherwise have to pay taxes on getting paid for it, then pay the purchase taxes on the vehicle, the home, all this other stuff that goes on, versus using an unincorporated business trust to operate and run your business. It's some things you definitely need to be informed on, some things you need to learn to make sure that you're operating within the confines of the law, because trust me, they look for you to slip up so they can get you. But there's so many different benefits to it. So the idea is to become aware. Something somebody told me a long time ago, and I preach it constantly. It's one of my biggest things. We fail to advance because we don't know how things work. A lot of people believe that it's impossible for us as a people, or for impoverished people born into poor backgrounds, or specifically us as a race, to advance and to close the racial wealth gap, because what we're seeing, the racial wealth gap widen. And so the idea is they simply have all the mechanisms, they have all the instruments, they have all the triggers, they have all the controls, and they are in positions of power. So there are a lot of things they do manipulate and they do control, but there are things and instruments that you have at your disposal that you simply aren't using. And the reason you don't know to use them is because you haven't invested the time, energy, and effort into understanding and knowing about them. And because you don't know about them, you don't use them. And then you sit there and go, man, they have an advantage, we don't. Oh, the thing is, life isn't fair. The first thing that shifted my life was understanding that life isn't fair. Life is not about finding a fair stage. Life is about saying, these are the cards on the table. What are you going to do with it? Life isn't fair. Life gives you what you get, and you do something with it or you don't. And the thing is, yes, is it going to be a harder road than it is for some? Yes. Are you going to have to be more consistent, and will it maybe take longer because of where you started from? Yes. But the other option is not to do anything. The other option is be just one more generation that doesn't pass down any wealth to the next generation, which means that generation has to start over from scratch, where same place you started, and run this race, which we're trying to win, while they are actually advancing each generation. They're seeding businesses, they're seeding home purchases, they're seeding college educations. Our children are going in debt. That's how the wealth gap is widening, because we aren't building anything to stand our children on. We're 18, get out, start helping pay the rent. Well, that's not helping anybody build anything. What is the plan? And you know, the whole idea is to build something that grows. And that's why I'm real big on passively managed mutual funds or index funds, something that grows with a compound interest annually. You definitely want to be invested in that, because that's your long-term security. That over time is going to produce, because it's done it year after year, it's going to produce long-term. It's slow growth, but it's steady growth, and it's consistent growth, and it's clockwork. You need to have that. Now, a lot of people that doesn't appeal to, because what we are in a microwave society where everything needs to happen now, and that get rich quick thing is what gets us caught. We won't invest in something steady, but we'll go out and take that shot. We'll buy that damn lottery ticket. We'll go out and we'll go gamble. We'll go out and this sounds good, I'm gonna jump on it, then realize, man, I got burnt. Well, all these things out here that are proven over and over again just aren't moving fast enough for you. But here's the outcome. At some point, that thing that's 5 years down the line that you can't wait for, guess what's going to happen? At some point, you're going to get there, and you're going to be 5 years from now. And you won't have what you could have had 5 years from now, because you didn't invest and make the right choice now. That's the way you've got to start thinking. That's the way they think. That's the way anybody who's got a solid foundation to stand on at a certain point in life, they started. Now, everybody that I interviewed to build this course are exceptionally, remarkably ultra wealthy, but didn't start that way. I didn't interview trust fund kids. I didn't interview anybody in here. I interviewed people who built it, who went out and did it using mechanisms. I have some unbelievable stories and a bunch of other stuff to share with you. This thing is unbelievable. It's changing my life, and I want to help you change your life. I've always been good at the front end of going out and finding ways to generate money, building companies, doing things, living my dream. But how I was handling money as it came in needed work. How I was preparing myself to deal with the long-term things did work. Well, some health scares I had a few years back really woke me up and said, stop playing. Stop playing, start building. And here's another thing that I absolutely love is most people that don't have a business, or are just in the infancy stages of creating a business, don't realize the power they have right now for wealth, because a lot of people, their wealth is hidden in their business. Bezos, Gates. Well, Gates has kind of moved out on some other stuff, but their wealth was in their business. They literally built a business, and it housed their wealth. And that's another thing you have. You have something you own, something you control, or something that's a part of a trust you created. And now it's developing capacity and it's being evaluated on its worth. And the valuation of your company is going to dictate a part of your net worth. If it's yours and it's worth something, it's a part of your net worth. Now you measure that against your debt and all your other assets, you get your net worth. But there's so much to learn about this that we don't. And we don't want to invest time. We'll spend time on viral videos, on all this other stuff that's out there that has no intrinsic value, that does not advance us as individuals or our families or our community or our race. And we're getting caught up in it. And then we're frustrated because we keep getting the same results. At some point, we have to change our focus. We have to get our mindset. We have to go in. We have to be willing to make sacrifices. We have to be willing to say, maybe I'm not going to ball for a while. Maybe I'm not going to roll heavy cash. And again, this is another thing that you're going to hear me say constantly. And I'm almost done here. You're going to hear me say this constantly. Do not go cash heavy. Cash is the weakest way to hold your wealth. It's the most volatile and risky way to hold your wealth, especially with the struggles that the US dollar is experiencing, the rate of inflation in which the value of the dollar is being eaten up over time. The fact that we're in a debt-based economy that calls for us to consistently overspend in order for the economy to give value to the dollar. We need to understand all of that because it's going to show us how to move. Put your wealth in something hard or at least something solid. You want it in something that isn't easily devalued when currency becomes devalued. A bunch of other stuff to learn, but those are the things that I want to leave with you today. Again, if you don't have at least 2 streams of income, the 7-day online business launch course is where you need to start. I have created multiple entities, multiple brands: Rick Wallace Enterprises, Myriad Business Solutions, Odyssey Media Group and Publishing, Master Fitness 21, the Visionetics Institute, and on and on. I've created those online, generated revenue, taught people how to do it, did webinars, seminars, conferences on how to do it. And now I put it online so anybody can access it and grow it. The link is in the description, but I do that. If you're ready to truly settle down and learn step by step the intensive and comprehensive process of wealth building, enroll in that Legacy Wealth Academy's Path to Wealth, Path to Generational Wealth course. This is an 18-month course. This is not an overnight thing. This ain't something you're going to pop on and next week you're going to be a brilliant financial mind. This is 18 months of intensive. You got to be going hard in the paint to finish it, an 18-month course. But I promise you, if you sign up for it, your life will change. Long before you get to the 18 months, you're going to start to see a shift. You're going to start to see how you think about what you spend. You're going to start seeing yourself, ask yourself questions you haven't asked. Do I really need that? Is this an emotional buying decision? Could I be investing this in something that would actually appreciate in value versus buying something that would appreciate in value or be gone within a day or two? Just things to think about. But anyway, all of that's in the description box. You make a move, but I tell you what won't happen. Nothing will happen if you don't make a choice and make a decision to do something different than what you've been doing. It's that simple. And the pain of showing up 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, and not having anything because you couldn't see you didn't have the long-sightedness or the ability to project out and understand that the decisions you're making today is going to determine what type of life you live 20 years from now. That's a painful reality because you're going to be there and you're going to have to live with that reality and that consequence of not having what you need to live the life you want to live. And it's scary for a lot of people that I'm trying to help right now because they did not make the right decision 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. And now they're having to be in their 60s and a couple in their 70s, reinventing themselves and getting back out there in the game. But luckily, the internet opens up the gate and allows them to use their experience. But now it's an urgency and it's a need. Whereas if they would have done it right, it would have been, I'm doing it because I love doing it. And that's my goal. When I get to retirement age, I'm not stopping. I'm not ever retiring. Because what I have to give is my passion. I love it. I wake up every day. I live for it. The last thing I'm going to do is sit down and start dying slowly because I have nothing to get up for. But there is a point I'm going to get to where I'm doing it solely because I love to and not because if I don't, it's going to be a problem. And that has to be the goal. So there has to be things done. There has to be steps made. There have to be decisions set up now for that to be a reality. And so I'm just trying to get you guys really to understand that the decisions you make now are going to be what determines the life you live 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond. On that note, I'm out of here. As I always say, I live my life on full so that when I leave this place, I die on E. I'm challenging you to do the same. On that note, I'm out.